So let me ask that question again. What is data? Dictionary. Key value pairs. Very good. Unordered. Contains keys and its values. Very good. So anything could be fine, right? If you have data, you have to follow the data. But if it is a generic case, you can probably create a dummy data and share it. Ultimately, you have to learn how to create dictionary. That is important. Yes, key and value form. Right. That's correct. I'm assuming you have done the data dictionary only. Key and value pair dictionary has been created. And okay, let's proceed further. Okay, we have a lot of things to cover. So we have covered few things, and let me revise those things now. So we started with the Python features, then we looked at the data types. The data types of your Python can be explained as integer, float, then we have character and complex numbers. And of course, Boolean type is also there. Boolean basically is true or false. Then we also have something called as byte, but yeah, that is not required. We did not discuss about that. You can ignore it. So these are the data types in Python. Then we discussed about operators, and in operators we have arithmetic operators, right? And then we have assignment operators. Then we had logical operators, relational or comparational operators. Then we had identity operators. Then we also have membership operators. Right? These are few operators that we have looked at. Then we looked at data structures. The data structures basically are talking about the data which is consumed in Python or which is being manipulated in Python programming. And this can be in multiple forms. Whenever we talk about data structures, we start with vectors, right? We start with vectors. And in Python, we deal with that as one-dimensional array. Then we also have matrices or matrix. We can deal that with two-dimensional array, but you also have matrix type. The difference here is the dimension. In matrix, the rows and columns that we have, those will, all of those rows will have equal column size. Fixed dimension would be there. Then the most importantly, the sequential data that we need to work with. The sequential data that we have, right? It is, okay, one second. Do we have any Priyesh meeting ID? Okay, Priyesh, did you join? Just cross checking. Do we have Priyesh here? Yeah, we have. Okay. All right. All right. So we have sequential data. And this sequential data in Python is handled using the most important four types of data, four types of data, or I can say 5 types. But yeah, let's discuss in 4 types. lists and tuples, sets and dictionaries. Right? Lists and tuples, sets and dictionaries. Yeah, the session is getting recorded and I think few people have issues. Guys, please hold on to your questions. If you have any, we will discuss that later. You can also type in your message in the meantime. All right. So lists and tuples, these are ordered data types. Both of them are ordered and both of them are indexed. Right? And lists is basically represented in square brackets and it is mutable. Tuples is represented using the regular cup brackets and it is immutable. Now coming to sets and dictionaries, sets is unordered, unindexed, and no duplications. Sets will become immutable when you define them as frozen sets. Because you do not have any index, we cannot alter the values of a set. Now coming to dictionaries, they are unordered. The data is unordered, but the values will have index. And here also will not have any duplicates. So these are keys are immutable. Keys becomes immutable here in the dictionaries. These are the four broad data types that we need to look at. And along with this, you will also have strings. Here you are talking about operational data. You can talk about numbers and all that. Whereas in strings, we talk about character data. Okay, let me take a. Okay, everybody else, please confirm if my voice is low. Is it only for Pradeep? I see Pradeep saying the volume is very low. It's clear, right? Okay. Pradeep, please check your audio settings. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Right. So these are the data structures that we have discussed. This is what we have done till now. Now today we are going to discuss about the conditional statements. The conditional statements that we are talking about, whenever you say conditional statements, right? The default conditional statement is if condition. You say if a condition is satisfied, do a task. If a condition is satisfied, you are saying do this task. But we also have what if the condition is not satisfied? Because whenever you say condition, the condition can be either true or false. It's a Boolean task that we have. Right? So it can be either true or false. If it is true, fine. You're doing a task. But you might also have a condition where if the condition is failing, then you also have to apply some other condition. So here, you're saying if this condition, you're saying if get, if this is true, then you want to do a task. If it is false, then you're doing this task and proceeding further. Right? So this is how you can explain if condition. And when you talk about conditional statements, we'll have if statement, if else. This is the most standardly applied if loop. Then you also have if, else if conditions. You might also have nested if else. Okay, multiple if conditions can also be there. These are various options that we have. So let us try and deal with this in our code. So I will go to Spider. I'll scroll down all the way, and here I will try to type my code. This is strange. Okay, let me restart the kernel. Okay, the variables are gone. All right, let me type in. I'm saying conditional statements. We are going with if conditions. So always remember, we put a condition if, then you write a condition. And whenever you're writing a loop, right, whenever you try to write a loop, then you would get this right indentation problem that we need to take care of, right? So here we are saying if a condition is satisfied. You can write any simple condition that you can think of. So let's see what do we have in the code. Okay, we are putting a condition, defining it as true, and then okay, the simple command that I'm typing. So we are saying is underscore male, and I'm using the same condition. I'm saying true, Boolean output. So I'm defining a variable here is male, and I'm saying it is true. So let us execute this. So it is a variable which is getting defined now. Okay, it's a Boolean output. The value is true, and you're saying is male. Right? Next, we will say if this condition is satisfied, if is underscore male, then you say print male. So what is happening here? I'm not typing anything else. I'm just typing here till here. So if this condition is true, then it will print the value. Now I'm saying is male. The output is true only, right? So this should print the value. Okay, let me increase the font size here. Yeah. Now if you observe here that small arrow in Spider, right? This is something that you have to keep an eye on. Whenever you're writing multiple lines, continuation of multiple lines, right, in a loop, then you will get this small arrow button in Spider. If you're using Spider, this comes up. If you're using Jupyter, you will not have those things because it is in a packed cell. And whenever you're executing multiple lines like this in Python, in Spider, you have to select all the lines that needs to be executed. All the lines which are defined as a loop have to be executed. Right? So we will have to execute like this. And it says mail. If you execute by one line, just put your mouse cursor on the first line and execute, it will throw error. Unexpected end of the file while parsing. So it's syntax error. It's basically like a syntax error, right? This is something you have to remember. So whenever you're putting this multiple lines of code in the loops, you will see this colon. That's a standard syntax. Okay, and after colon, when you're writing the next line, remember to follow the indentation, right? This is basically to define the structure of your multiple lines. And if you don't put that indentation, the spacing properly, then Python would treat that as a separate line of code. Now, if that happens, then yeah, you have a hard time. You'll get error. For example, see, I'm putting this. Immediately it is throwing error. You can see there. You can use a tab to get to that correct position, or Spider now has all those features. You just enter. Right after colon, if you enter, automatically it starts at that position, continuation. Don't alter the positions, right? That is very important in multiple lines coding, especially when you're doing these if conditions, right? Loops. So these are very, 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 very important. And trust me, you will have very, very hard time if your indentation is not correct. And you're so lucky. I always keep saying this to my current students. You're so lucky because Spider, when you're using Spider, it has so many features now. The indentation is auto-corrected. It clearly shows that there are multiple lines, right? It warns when you're doing something wrong. The help command is there. Sticky notes are there. When we used to work, when we started, it was like a very horrible time. We would not get any help with the indentation, and if you don't do the right indentation, the code would throw errors, and it wouldn't show the error message also like this to identify. See, still it is fine. See, so if you have to continue, start after leaving a space. Even one space is fine, but it follows that proper structure. Okay, keep this indentation in mind. Okay, it will throw error otherwise. Now we did if conditions. I also want to put else condition. What is that else condition I want to type? Print female. And look at that. It's clearly showing the error. That's because the indentation is not full. Now you don't have any problem, right? So if you execute all the lines together, you have to execute all the lines together, okay? Remember that. Only then you get that complete output, okay? Logically, you can also execute two lines, okay? That is because you can see this arrow button. If you expand it, you're getting that. If you minimize it, it's going, right? It's going off. So this is, your male female condition. If you say here false, and if you define this, and if you execute this, it says female. Because this condition is false. If false, you're saying go to this route. You can also write very simple commands. You can do a lot of such things. Say, for example, I'm going to write a simple comparative operators here. Okay, conditional statements, we'll do comparator operation. So I'll define A is equals to, let's say 10, B is equals to 20. Okay, I'm defining A is equals to 10, B is equals to 20. And I'm saying if A greater than B, put colon, and then you say what you want to do. You might say, in this case, you might say, if A is greater than B, then do A minus B. Else, do B minus A. Right? So I'm writing a simple logic. I'm executing this. And I'm executing together here. Okay? Now I have not asked anything to be printed out. Hence, it's not printing anything out. So we will say print here. If I do print, then it will give you the output. Now it will throw the output 10. Because A is not greater than B, 10 is not greater than 20, right? Hence this is not executed. This is executed. Very, very simple logics, right? If conditions. If else if is also there, right? So let's look into a simple condition. I'll expand the same condition here that we have. If else if, this is if else. I've executed only if also. Now we are looking at if else if. So let us extend this condition. Okay, we'll print something here. Okay, so I'll just take this, type in here. I'll say if else if. Right. So I'll paste it here. But rather than this, I will say print A is greater. Else if is there, right? Else if means you are verifying for another condition which says A is equal to B. Then you say print both are equal. Then you say else B is greater. Simple logic, right? A, B, C. Now we are executing this and you get B is greater. Because both these conditions are failed. Hence automatically you get B is greater. So this is basically how we do if conditions, if else if conditions, right? You'll also see nested if conditions. Those things will also be there. Nested if means you first have if conditions. Within that task, if a condition is satisfied for the if condition, then you go into another if loop, right? That's your if nested if conditions. I think I do have that. Yeah, this is nested if conditions. So we are saying I'm passing score is 500, money is 2000, age is 65. These three values are being defined, hard coded. Then you are verifying if the score is greater than 100. 500 is greater than 100, right? Yes. So you will get a message saying you got good points, right? You got good points. Then within this if condition, you are starting another if condition, which says if you are having money greater than or equal to 100, then you say you got good point. Then you say you win. Greater than or equal to 5,000, then you say you win, right? Other and inside that if again you are saying whether your age is greater than 30 or not. If your value is greater than 5,000, you're going inside it. But what is my money? Here I'm passing it as 2,000, right? So this condition is failing. So you come to the corresponding else condition. Corresponding else condition, you see the spacing has to be appropriately given. If you do not give this spacing, then for this if, this else would consider. Right? We go to that position. So we basically have to look at if else conditions with these spacing. As I said, indentation is very, 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 very important. Okay. So let us execute this and you will see that you got good points and you say you have high points but you do not have enough money. It doesn't even look for the age condition. It's not entering into that if loop. So this is what is updated here. Right? All right. So this is basically your if conditions. If the condition is satisfied, do a task. If condition is not satisfied, then do another task. Okay, very simple if conditions. Then we have loops, right? The loops can be explained in two forms. Okay, you can do a lot of things, Sundar. You just have to explore. Okay, just try and explore. Right, next coming to the loops. Loops basically are of two types, pre-loop and post-loop. Most often we do pre-loops only. Pre-loops means you check the condition and then go with the iteration or the task. This is your pre-loop conditions. Before you entering into the task, you verify the condition. Then you will also have post-loop calculations. Post-loop calculations basically talk about perform the task first, capture the value, and then verify whether that satisfies the condition or not. Okay, generally post-loop conditions will be in a nested conditions, hybrid conditions, like if condition is there and then you will have while condition, or right, these kind of if and for loop, these kind of things will be there. That's when you will have pre and post loops. That is how you are going to write your logic. Based on that, you can define pre and post. But another important thing that you need to look at is the loops that you are basically going to work with. They are basically of two broad types. These broad approaches are called as infinite loops and finite loops. Infinite loops and finite loops. Infinite loops basically are talking about, something which basically keeps going. Infinite means there is no end to it, right? There's no end to it. It keeps going unless until the condition is satisfied. The only check for the loop is the condition. Okay? Until unless this condition is satisfied, you repeat. Okay? Now, there are finite loops which basically say repeat until a fixed value. Iterations will be fixed. Here, repeat until the condition is satisfied. But in finite loops, you are saying repeat it repeat it until the fixed value is reached or the condition is satisfied. So you are putting another condition basically here, saying you don't do limitlessly. You try it out only for a certain time, and if it is happening, fine. If it doesn't happen, come out. So in short, your finite loops are for loops. Finite loops are for loops, and infinite loops are your while loops. Okay, we will have iterations set for your loops. We'll use range, we'll use iterators, right? We'll also use break conditions, or we can also have if else conditions, right? Else conditions can also be there for else basically. So all these are different approaches that we can have implemented for loops. Now let me explain a simple while loop, and then we will look into this complex while loop. It's a very, very complex while loop that you will have. We'll execute this also, but let me first execute a simple while loop. I'm saying loops, and then we'll start with while loop. Let's say x is equals to 1. Okay, I'm defining a variable called x which is equal to 1. Then let's say I'm putting a while condition, while I, or here I put x, right? While x is less than, or you can say x is less than 10, you repeat these steps. What is that steps? You want to print x. Print x. And then you say x is equals to x plus 1. You are putting a counter there. Very simple while loop. I'm defining x is equals to 1. And then I'm executing this while loop. And I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? Very simple while loop. Right? All right. Now, if you see here, I do not have any iteration. I mean, the iteration is there, but that iteration is inside the task. Right? Now, we'll look into for loop also. We'll try and understand the iteration that I'm using will be there along with the condition. But yeah, this is anyways a finite loop that you're writing. It's a while loop, but it's still a finite loop. It has repetitions based on the condition. Next, we also have another very important point, which is break function. Let me explain this and then we will go to the conditions that we need to do with our default code. You don't want to print till 9, right? You don't want to try till 9. So in such cases, you would write the code, right, in such a way like, I mean, I'll just add few more lines here. You're printing the value fine, but you'll also say if condition, if x is equal to, let's say 6 or 5, let's say 5, then you want to break this condition. You want to break out. You don't want to continue anymore. Break. When you do this, I would get from 1 till 5 because it's checking for 5. So let me execute this. You see that you get values from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? So this is your while loops logic. Let us go to the code that I have shared. It's a big code. So you're writing you're basically defining a random number. In order to generate that random number, you need to have this package called random. This package is creating a random number for you. Every time you execute it, it will be a different number. Right? Say for example, I'm importing this. Yeah. Import this random number. Okay, this is in, fine. Let me do this. I need to enter something here. Okay. Let me copy this and paste it here so that I can explain line by line. Okay. So I'm importing a library called random. Now this library is going to help you generate this random number. Okay. If you say random.random, every time you generate, look at that. It is going to give you a number. which is going to lie between 0 to 1. Every time you execute, random number will be generated. Now I'm multiplying this random number with another integer called 20. You can hard code it, you can give any number there. I'm giving 20. So this time I get 18 as a random number. I'm taking integer, rounding it off. So I'll get some number, multiply that with 20, and then take only the integer. So you get 18 as the number. Then you are defining a variable guess and passing a value 0 to it. Right? You're passing a value 0 to it. Now you are coming up with while loop here. The while loop is going to check whether the number that you are guessing, right, is not equal to this number. Not equal to. If it is not equal, then you are going to proceed. Okay, while guess is not equal to random number, of course guess is 0, right? It cannot be, because you are taking integer of that random number, so it can never be 0. So if guess is not equal to random number, go into this. What you're doing, you're saying ask for a number, input, and that input you're saying it should be integer. Okay, guess is equals to integer, input new number. Now you're checking if this guess that you have received, I mean the user who is passing this number, did he pass a value which is greater than 0 or not? It has to be greater than 0. Right? If it is greater than 0, then you enter into these conditions. If not, you're going to say that, hey, you are given up. Sorry that you are given up. And you're saying break. Now break is a function which would basically cut the execution there. So you're going to come out of this while loop. If you have an infinite loop, then this is break function will come very, very handy. Right? You're coming out. But if the value, that integer value that the user is passing is greater than 0, if it is greater than 0, then you are saying if that number that the user is passing is greater than this random number which is generated, then you are saying number is too large. Else if you are saying number is too small. Right? You're putting else if and saying number is too small and then coming out. Right? So this is basically how you have if else conditions. Right. So let us execute this. Now when you are executing, make sure you are executing the entire lines. All the lines have to be selected, which logically is a code. Now when you execute it, you are basically asking the user to pass the number. This input function is to pass the number. So you are passing a random number. It says the number is too small because your random number that you have generated here was 18. Right? So it says 5 is too small. Let's say 10. It still says number is too small. So how about taking 30? So 30 will be greater than the number. Right? So it says number is too large. Then you say 20. Number is too large. 18. When you find that it is equal, while else, if it is equal, then you are saying congratulations, you won. Right? All right. So this is how your while else is going to work. This is your while loop. As I said, multiple combinations will be there. You can try out on applying those logics into your coding. Right. So we can right do these sort of examples. Next, we'll move on to, let's say, for loops. Do you have anything else? Okay, yeah, this is while else that you was talking about. Yeah, this is what happens. While else. While this is greater than or less than 5, you print this and keep typing that. Right? If this condition is not satisfied, then you're going to say it's not equal. Okay? Yeah. Right, so let's move on to the for loop. For loops are finite loops. Finite loops means you are putting a limit to the repetitions. If you see this code, yeah, dinner time, snacks is equals to pizza, burger, shawarma, and Frankie. 4 options are there. That means when you are using this for loop as an iterator, that means each value will be read once. So how many values are there? 4 values are there. So you can repeat this for loop only 4 times. It's a limited repetitions that you can do. So first deal with this. You say snacks is equals to this list, and then you are going to do an iteration. Iteration basically means you are going to read each value separately from your for loop. So that's your finite loops, friends. Now this iteration can happen on indexed values, remember, right? But of course, you can also apply it on a set because individually it is looking into all the values. Right, so this is about your repetitions for loop. It's a simple condition that you are going to do. You can also put break conditions here, okay? Just like how we have seen break statement, break condition in while loop, right? You can also do here, okay? Let's say I'll take the same code. Snacks is equals to this. I'll write the for loop. Let me type in here. Yeah. So I'm defining my snacks. I have a for loop where snack is a variable, a pointer, an iterator, which is going to sequentially go into this snacks variable and pick each value individually. You can put any variable name here. You don't have to use snack itself, right? And you can also, right, type this. Remember I said break condition, right? If your snack, let's say, is shawarma, then you are going to say break the loop. If conditions, why is this not using this? Colon, yeah, sorry, double equal to, and indentation problem. Yeah. So if I execute this, it will print only these 3. When it is equal to shawarma, it stops. It doesn't go to the next value. So this is your simple for loop conditions. Right. Then we have right, various other things that we can discuss. We'll proceed further as and how we'll see. I mean, in data manipulation also we'll look into all these things. Let's proceed. Yeah. Okay. Next we have nested conditions. We have if and for both considered. So here I'm writing factorial value. This is your factorial code. So let us try and do this. For else is next one. This is if else and for. So you're combining for and if. So this is factorial code. We are using if and for loop, if condition and for loop conditions. So to begin with, you are going to take an input as number. User will be passing the number. And you are defining a variable called factorial, which is equal to 1. Right? You're passing it as 1. Then the input number that the user is passing, if it is less than 0, obviously you are going to put a message factorial. You need positive integer, right? So you're going to say it should be positive. Else the number, if it is equal to 0, else if you're simply typing the factorial is 1. You don't need to do any calculations, because a factorial of 0 is nothing but 1. But if your number is greater than 1, then you are doing this range function. You're applying range function for loop. You're saying for I in range of values. So you're going to choose from 1 till number, because upper limit is not considered, right? So you're saying range 1 till num plus 1. For I in range 1 comma num plus 1 in sequence, we are taking each value there and multiplying with I. Your factorial is already defined as 1. You're saying 1 is equals to 1 multiplied by 1. And that is assigned to factorial. I can also write this condition, this line, as factorial multiplied equal I. Right? I can also do this. Right? And then you are finally printing the output, factorial value. So let us execute this. I'll have to copy everything so that my loop makes sense. So I'm passing the input number. Let's say I pass 5. When I pass 5, it is going to execute the output 120. Because I have 2 spaces, it's printing like that. 5 factorial 120, right? So we used if else if along with for loop. Right? This is your if else loop with for loop. Then we also have some other for loop conditions. Let's see. Yeah, for else, and I'm using break function also. Even and odd number, that's what it is capturing here, right? So let me type in this. It's a simple code. I'll type in. So we are going to see whether the value is even or odd. So you're going to check even or odd. So first we'll define some numbers, okay? N is equals to 1, 11, 15, 31, 33, 79, then 99, okay? Some numbers. So this is your list. Now I'm writing a for loop What we have to do, we have to write, we have to take each value of this n and then divide this with 2, right? So for I, let's say for I in n, if I is divided by 2 and if you get remainder as 0, then you're saying print even numbers. Right? It has even numbers. It doesn't print what are those even numbers, it just says whether there are even numbers or not. Right? That's if condition. Now I'll say else condition. Else print only odd numbers. Now why is this indentation coming here? Okay, it has to be an iterator. Let me put a break condition. And then this is double equal to percentile, right? Double equal to, okay, yeah. So if you find any even number, it is going to break. If I don't put this, it continuously checks for all the numbers. Okay, let me execute this. Only odd number, only odd number. Right? It is printing only the odd number. This is because you have this if condition and else condition taken together. If I change the indentation here, look at this indentation, I'm putting it here. Now see the output. It prints only once, it doesn't print multiple times. Right? Because the condition is now put, the else condition is put along with the for loop. Now if I put even number, let's say this is 16. Let me deal this like this. Now if I execute, it says even numbers, but it is also checking for the rest of the numbers. Right? Hence it says after 16 it is having even numbers also. So we need to put a break condition here. Now if you do it, it will break as soon as it finds even number. Found a even number. This would be more appropriate. If you say as soon as it finds an even number, it will stop. If you don't put break, it continues even after that. So it will print that, it will print this also. Right. So that is your break condition. Right. Looks like after end for else gets executed. After end, why end? You don't need end after. What is it doing? Understand the flow. It is taking I as first number. 1 divided by 2. What is the remainder? Not equal to 0. So what it will do? It will have to print this. Right? Isn't it? But you are doing a for loop. It keeps going on. It repeats. It comes here. 11 percentile 2. Again not equal to 0. Again check. 16 divided by 2. Yes, this is equal to 0. So what you're doing? You're executing this. You're printing this. I have not put break condition. It's only checking for that condition and moves on. Then it again checks 31. Is it equal to 0? No. So it proceeds and finally it prints this. When you put break, it would stop there only. It doesn't print this. right? All the, I mean, the iteration will stop when this condition is satisfied. That iteration will not stop if that iteration is not broken down. So that's the break condition that we have. Okay, somebody was also saying break. Okay, when we will get the statements or you are given, you try, Kiran, did you try that code? Try. Don't ask me, as I said, don't ask me such questions. You experiment. Only then you will learn. I will say, okay, if you do this, you will get this. But when would you learn? Try. Understand the flow and then try the right option. You will get it. If you are not getting it, yes, then come to me. Try first. Okay, we'll take a break now. Okay. Okay, again you forgot, when I say range in Python, how does the range is taken? Whenever you put range, you will always put lower limit and upper limit, right? In range, it will start with the lower limit. Then it is iterating slowly by increasing by 1 unit, 1 value. And the Python will stop at upper minus 1 value, n minus 1 value only. It will not print upper limit. If you say range of 1 comma 10, then it is printing from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. It doesn't print that 10. When you are giving number as an input for factorial, you need to calculate that number also, right? Hence, to make sure you consider that, you are putting n plus 1 as a loop. Huh? Show the output of line 38. What 38? Did we start with 38? No. This one. Relational operators. Are you talking about this? Did we execute anything here? No. The output one. What output one? Okay. This console. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Again, guys, I'm saying if there is any doubt in the conditions, in the commands, try it out first. Try out, Sundar. Try out. Use common sense. Use the logic. If you're doing percentile by 2, you'll get 0. If you do not get 0, that means it's an odd number. Think from that perspective. After else, it is showing invalid syntax. Please, which command? The same thing that you are seeing on the screen, Srilata? Line number 505, 509, that one? Let me scroll down. Similar else we can write with, while loop also you can write, yes. Okay, is the indentation not correct, Srilata? You need to check if the indentation is correct. Spacing should be there after the else command. And if you're typing print, make sure that the print is in lowercase letters and write the quotes should be in single or double quotes. Indentation is what you'll get error with. The indentation should be the problem, Srilata. Check that indentation spacing. Did you put this colon? Okay, type your code here once. Let's see. We will finish this and then take break. Where is else? Else is inside if. You're typing else inside if loop. That has to be coming out. Look at this position. Here I have if. Do I have else there? No, right? Else is under for loop. That order should be properly maintained. As I said, indentation is important. What you are trying to do is under if you are putting else condition. But after else you are not putting print. You are putting print outside. If you have else, print should start here, not here. Yeah. If else can be used there, people. Or you can also put and conditions, and operator. Remember the comparison operators that we looked at? Logical operators, the first class, and operator can be used there. Yes, Anuj, you can try. Yes. Did you get the result? You're asking me, try out, right? What did you get when you typed the code and executed? Okay, guys, we'll take the break, come back, and then continue. Okay, we'll see that. Okay. 9:13, so 7 minutes break only today. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think that is in the assignment, is it? That's the reason you're asking. We'll come back and discuss, friends. Take the break. All right. Yeah, assignment 2 and 3, right? Avanish. Yeah, Avanish. Um, I clearly mentioned in the Friday session it was assignment 2 and assignment 3 because those were relevant for you people. That's what we covered. So Sunday, right? That was the deadline. For weekday classes, it would be Sunday midnight would be the deadline. Before the clock ticks Monday, you have to submit. I cannot say that. Probably day after tomorrow, maybe. I don't know, Pendra. We need to first cover the concepts. There are a few more things that we need to look at. Yeah, probably day after tomorrow. Yeah. So looping or computational expensive. What are the alternate way we can iterate? Looping is the best way you do. Of course, it is computationally intensive, but that if you have to traverse, if you have to check, then obviously that is the only way you do it, right? And I have a question says I tried the operator but syntax error. Okay. Yeah, Vamshi is given some result. Yeah, if both the conditions are satisfied, then it says true. You have to put and Vamshi, not or. Or basically is or gate basically says at least one condition satisfied, it is true. So you have to put and condition there, not or. Sundar, probably by Thursday or Friday, Sundar. Tanuj, your salesperson. What will be the difference if we include if and not for? These are only conditions, Sanjay. See, you're saying there is a condition. If that condition is satisfied, do this. If that condition is not satisfied, then what? In such cases, you are putting else. Right? Yeah. Ashutosh. What is that, Ashutosh? What do you want me to look at? Unexpected indented error. Because indent error, indentation is problem. Looks fine to me. If Ashu, then print else print that. Okay, that could be yeah, Sundar. That could be the problem. Yeah. Yeah, select everything and run it. And means both condition needs to satisfy or any one condition satisfies. Anuj, when you are trying to say if the value is falling between 25 and 55, if you're saying x should be there between these two, if you're saying x is greater than 25 or x is less than 55, then at least one condition is satisfied, it is going to result as true. You'll not get this. It has to be between them. So you're saying mandatory and one condition is false, that's also fine for you, right? So our condition is saying both have to be true. Okay, only then you get sorry, both have to be false, only then you get false condition. Whereas in and condition you're saying both have to be true, only you'll get true. Yeah, that way what you're saying is your x is less than 25. Sorry, x is less than 25. You're saying x is less than 25 or x is greater than 55. Hmm. Yeah, or will be used here. Yes. I thought it has to be in between. Yeah, or will be coming here. Okay, fine. So play around and check. Let's move on and talk about now the next concept, which is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, iterators only. We did while loop, we did for loop. Okay, then we have iterators and then generators. Now, when we talk about iterator, remember iterator is basically a value which is repeating, right? Or it is trying to consider one value at a time, right? In sequence, it counts. So it is an object which allows the program to traverse through each element, right? So this is a small function. Iteratable value is machine learning. You're creating a string and you're creating an object. ITER is the function. Okay, that function will be used to iterate into the values. Right? You don't have to again say something else. You just use this iterative function. It would read each value of that object. So if you see here, I'm defining machine learning as a string and then I'm defining the iteration here, iteration function on this machine learning value. Now, while true, while the condition is true, try doing this. So you'll keep doing this and then you're saying except stop iterations. Except is basically exceptional handling. So exception is being created here, right? It will stop itself when it reaches the end, right? Exception will happen when the iteration will complete. So you get this exception and you will break that loop, while loop. Remember, while is a infinite loop. So you are basically writing an infinite loop this way. Right? So you are putting a break to stop that iteration. So it is going to take each value and print like this. Right? This is your iteration. And yeah, any iteratable objects you can take, like you can take lists or tuples or dictionaries. Sets can also be used. Right. So this is basically your iterations. Then we have something called as generator. Generator, basically it is a function, right? And it returns generator object without any begin. I mean, you don't have to start. A generator is a function that produces or yields a sequence of values, right? So if you look into that code, I'm basically creating a Fibonacci series, Fibonacci numbers. You're defining A and B as 0 and 1. Then you're writing a while loop, while limit, the limit that you are passing, Fibonacci number that you're giving, right, is less than A. What is A? A is 0. You're saying yield A and then replace the values here. So initially your A is 0, B is equals to 1. Okay, you're printing it here. Then you're checking A is less than limit or not. What is your A? You're putting A as 0, and limit is something that you will pass. Let's say in this example, we are passing 5. A is less than 5. Of course, 0 is less than 5, right? So we are entering into that loop. 0 less than 5. So you're basically getting yield statement is being used, right? So you get A. Then you're saying A is going to be taken as B, whereas B is going to be taken as A plus B. Right? So what is A? A initially is 0, B is 1. So now A will become 1, whereas B will become 0 plus 1, again 1 only. You repeat it again, go back. While loop, right? You're going back. Now your A is 1. You're checking, is 1 less than 5? Yes, 1 is less than 5. So let us write it here. A is less than 5 or 0 is less than 5, then 1 is less than 5. You print again A. Now you will get A as 1. You're replacing B to 1. What is B? At this level, B is 1. So A will remain 1. But B will take A plus B. So this becomes 2. Now it becomes 2. Right? So again you are saying A is less than 5. You get A is equals to 1 and you come here. Now what is B here? B is 2. So you are passing A as 2. And B will become 2 plus 1. It becomes 3. Right? So this is the Fibonacci series that we are going to apply. Okay? So let us do this. We are executing this here. It gives us a Fibonacci series still here. All right. Next, iteration. You're doing this iteration. You're printing the value. Okay, you're printing the value until you reach that exception, which is basically the end of the value. Yield is a function, Sundar. It basically is a function which looks at what is the value, past value. Based on that past value, it is iterating itself. So when I execute this, it is going to look at each and every value and print like this. Right? Increment? No, not increment. Yield is a function. It's just a function which is repeating the previous execution. Or you can say yield means it memorizes value A. So you can think from that perspective. Now here next function is called. Okay. This next function will be acting like a generator here. Okay, you're generating the sequence from here. Okay. All right. But these are few things that you might not show much importance. You don't need to understand all those things in detail. But yeah, these are all different functions that we have. The generator basically is a function which produces or yields a sequence of values. It repeatedly generates the value, but here if you see when you're typing this, it is kick-starting the value without any initialization directly. Okay, that's generator basically in simple terms. The most important thing in Python is functions. You need to spend more time here. Operators, data types, data structures, and functions. Of course, loops. Now, any programming language, whatever the programming language that you talk about, you will have functions. What will these functions do? Or let's say, what is the definition of a function, guys? Yeah, let's see. Who wants to type in the answer? Yeah. Reusable code is the right. Probably I can say reusable code in short. Repetitive steps, not repetitive steps. No. Okay. A function basically is nothing but a code which can be reused. This code which yields some result to you. Writing a code to get some result. Right? Now, every time you don't have to write this code, you can define that as a function. You can save that code and reuse that using a function name. That's simple functions. Definition of function. Now, whenever you talk about a function, there are broadly two types of functions. One is predefined, or I should say inbuilt functions. The other one is custom functions. Predefined functions or inbuilt functions, and the other one is custom functions. Right? Any programming language that you take, these are the broad two types of functions that you will see. We'll talk about custom functions also. In fact, that's what we are doing now. See, for example, here, you're typing this code. 4 times you're typing the code, right? Rather than doing that, you can define a custom function like this. You're writing your own function. And you just call that function. You don't have to type everything again and again. Now, the syntax to write a custom function. You say define and then name of the function, and you also pass the arguments. Within that cup brackets, you are passing the arguments. And because you are writing a condition here, statement here, you are putting colon. And after that colon here, you would have the indentations. Okay. Now, who is that every day at the same time is switching on their cameras? Is it the same person or is it different person? Is this condition clear? Is the syntax clear, friends? You are writing the keyword called define. DEF is nothing but define. And once you define, you're basically writing these steps for the function. You're giving a function name there. Okay? Yeah. How many arguments you pass, that is basically you're going to pass in. Okay? Right. Yeah. So if I execute this 4 times, you get the repetition 4 times. But I'm typing this define function. I'm not passing any arguments. When I'm defining this, it will print the output. So I'll just say this, and you get hello function. So you have different functions like this. I'm passing here the values. right? And this would print the output. You can do any custom functions. Say for example, you are typing another custom function. Let me type in that. Okay, let me type a function here. Okay, define, you give a name called hi, you say name, and you print something. Print hi, and then oh sorry, this is a string, right? So you have to put string hi, write the name. You simply put the name. And string manipulations, if you remember, you are putting the string manipulation here. You are defining this. Okay, now your function name is hi, so you say hi Sharat. I'm passing this as an input, right? And it will be printed. Okay, this is why this is not printed. String, right? Okay. Yeah, this is string, so I'm passing it string. So just taking the input and passing it. You can pass any name there. So generally what happens is in an application forms, you might want to write something like this, automated messages. So you're passing the parameters directly there. Right? These are the simple custom functions that you can write. All right. We'll write this define function. Okay, very simple add function. We'll type that. So I'll say define add. You say n1 comma n2. Two numbers you need, right? For adding you need two numbers. So I'm passing two arguments. I'm calling them as n1 and n2. You're simply saying return n1 plus n2. That's it. Very simple custom function you are writing. You're executing this. Now when you want to add two numbers, you'll simply use this function called add and pass that number. Now if you pass three arguments, it will not work. It will not work with three values. You can try and do this. So I'll put a comma here, it will not work. Add takes two positional arguments, but three arguments, right? So the arguments that you are passing is also important that we need to look at. Right? These different kind of arguments are there. We call them as positional arguments, formal arguments, right? Actual arguments. Different things will come into picture. So this is a positional argument. Okay. It's just a value that you are passing here in this position. You're putting this, right? So when you pass two, when you're defining the arguments are two, then in that position you have to pass only two. You cannot pass three. Okay. Right. So this is a simple add function that you are defining. All right. Next, when you talk about these arguments, right, we'll also have to look at, as I said, arguments, different arguments are there. Okay. We have formal, we have actual. Formal arguments are identified, right, or these are identifiers or pointers used in the function definition to represent corresponding actual arguments. But what are the actual arguments in that case then? Actual arguments are the actual values, right, which are used inside the parenthesis here. This is your function call, right? So you're passing 2 and 3, right? So those are your actual values, right? And here A and B are your formal arguments. Then we also have positional argument. 2 and 3 are basically your positional arguments only. So these are different names which are given for your arguments. Right. Next, we have this execution, rectangle area. You need, formula for rectangle is area for a rectangle is length into height, right? Or width into height, or whatever you want to call that. L into B. So I'm defining width and height as two parameters that I'm passing, and I'm just multiplying them. That would be your output. Now we are printing the function output by passing width is equals to 1, height is equals to 2. Right? Very simple execution. 1 multiplied by 2 will happen. Okay. Now positional argument is nothing but these values 1 and 2. These are basically the values that you have to place here. There are different ways to explain that value which is not equal to followed by a equal sign, right? All those things will be there, but what you are seeing here is a positional argument is the value which you are positioned inside the parenthesis. Then we have keyword arguments. Then we also have special arguments. We have keyword arguments, right? This is key value arguments. This is keyword arguments. So many things will be there. So when you say keyword arguments, here you are passing a value directly to map to that value, to this argument. So if you see here, I have child 3, child 2, child 1, right? But when you are passing that function, you are pointing to that variable. Why? Okay, I think some issue. Yeah, I hope you are able to see the screen now. Okay, yeah. So we are talking about this keyword arguments, right? Key and value pair syntax is what we are looking at. If you see here, I was saying child 3, child 2, child 1. It's not 1, 2, 3, rather it is 3 to 1. Now, when you're defining your function, you're specifically pointing to that positional, that formal argument. Child 1, you want to pass this, child 2, child 3. If you do not put this key value, child 1 as looks like some internet issue. Fine. All right. So this is basically the positions. The keys are child 3, child 2, child 1. Those are the keys. And for these, the values are being passed as this. Emil, child 2, and Thomas and Linus. These are your values. You are basically mapping. That's it. You're simply mapping to that value. Then we have other arguments. You can say special arguments here, variable arguments. That means the values will change. They can change. So you're passing these variable arguments. Define myFun star arguments v, that is variable arguments. And within this variable arguments, you're writing a for loop saying argument each value you're taking from the argument that you're passing here. And you can look at this. though I am passing start argument v, here you can see I'm passing 4 different values, right? I'm passing 4 different values. Yeah, so let me correct that. Yeah, so I'm basically passing this values. So when you print this, star arguments, it will take these values, each value, and print like this, right? It is printing like this. This is basically star basically saying you will have multiple arguments. You're simply saying there are multiple arguments that you might want to pass. Then you have double star key arguments, key value arguments, double star. So keyword arguments that we have learned, right? That's basically what you're passing here. So you're defining an intro and passing double star data. That is your key value arguments or keyword arguments. Data type of argument is you're typing data, whatever the data type is. And here for key and value in data items, you want to pass this key and value parameters. So you're saying print key and value, right? The format is key comma value. And here you are passing these names. So it is converting internally into a keyword pair mapping or dictionary mapping. You're saying this is keyword and this is the value. This is the keyword and this is the value, right? So it's like a dictionary, key and value arguments that you are passing. So this is the keyword, first name, and then this is the value. This is the first name, this is the value. You can define different keywords. When you put equal to, it is going to read as the keyword and the value to it. So let me define this, and it is going to print like this. See, the class is dictionary. It's converting the values into dictionaries. Keyword arguments. Then we have cube function, the custom function cube, very simple. Then we can also do a null function. It doesn't do anything. That is your hello function. It doesn't do anything. It's just you're passing that. That's it. So when you want to do a pass function, you do this null function. Right? So this is about your functions. Locals and globals. Now, when you are passing these variables, you can define variables as local variables or global variables. Local variables means which are local to that particular function that you are executing. Okay, this becomes local functions. Here you can see I'm defining a function called local. Right? So the values that I'm passing inside the local function, those are your local functions for that particular custom defined function. Okay, and then you can also use this global parameters, global values which are defined outside that custom function. So age is 23, name is Somesh, and places, there are different places that you are putting. It's a list. Now when you are defining this custom function, you are defining age, name. You are hard coding inside the custom function, and you are basically passing string, right? This is string is I years old and lives in this string. So you're basically passing the statement and pulling out the values of these arguments. Now name and age are same. If you see, At a global level, outside the local function also you have name and age. Inside the local function also you have defined name and age. Now when you are executing local function here, it is going to pull out age as 1, name as Ayush, and it is going to pull places from this only, because I don't have any other places anywhere, right? This variable is defined, so it is going to global values and pull it. Now when you do directly print function, you're not calling local function here. This is a call for your local function. This is a print function. Now when you do this, you're not referring to this code, right? You're not getting into that code. So name and age would basically be these values. So let me execute this and show you. So first statement is for this call. Okay, let me put print here. You'll want to do the separation here. When you execute this, you can see the difference. The first statement is for the local call. So Ayush is 1 year old and lives in Nagpur. Index is 0, places index 0. Whereas the second statement that you are seeing here, this is for this one. You're calling places of 2, that means Pune. So this is your local and global functions or parameters, sorry. All right. Star is not a pointer. Star is like you're saying multiple. There might be multiple values to that same name. That's what star means basically there. All right. Excuse me. All right. So we will stop here, and I'll take questions. Okay, we have 2 more minutes. Yeah. Yes, Alamil, you can use pass. Absolutely. In place of print command, you do pass. Okay. How to find the Jupyter Notebook module 1? I will check this notebook. No, it's not a notebook. It's not there. Murthy, it's not there. It's just an open source platform. Jupyter.org is a cloud-based platform. You'll not have the code there. You have to get the code from your sales representatives. Talk to them. In LMS, you will get it. Now, I'm not defining any local key. Local is not a keyword. Local is a function, custom function. You can change this custom function to any name. Yeah. It's a custom function. Random is a predefined function. Yes. That's a module. The next topic is module. We'll talk about module. In Python, we call them as modules, or in R, we call them as packages. Modules or packages are same. We are learning that, Sundar. Hold on. We'll learn that in the next class. When we discuss modules, we'll learn that. Yeah. I've seen your question, but yeah, I restricted myself not to answer that because we are going to do that anyways. In while if you don't want a particular number, then what? In while loop, if you don't want a particular number, and then what should we do? Put a condition and you can say pass function or break function. Alamelu, we said we don't want to print anything, print any output in your function. So in such conditions, when you're writing some function, you can simply say pass Rather than using printing the output for the custom function, you can say pass. Pass is a keyword, right? Return is also a keyword which will return the output or prints the output. So you can basically use, yes, these things. If we add local and global, it will return local variable first. No, it depends on what the function where you defined. You're referring to this function, right? Inside the function, you have the variables defined. When you're calling this, first it will look into this variables. Then it will, if it is not finding there, then it goes to the outer level variables, global variables. I will try this in a minute. Module 1 working, sir. Murthy, which batch you are from? Yeah, Anuj. Yield is basically recording what is the previous value. You should have then, Murthy. Others are also able to access it, right? Others are able to access this module 1 library, module 1 code. I fail to understand why you are not getting it. Yeah, the previous value, whatever the previous value is there, yield is going to store that value until unless that value is getting changed. It's recording, it's kind of recording or saving it. Friends, anyone else has trouble in accessing the codes? No, right? Okay. I think Murthy, what you are not doing is loading that code in Jupyter Notebook. So what you need to do is go to jupyter.org, open your access here. You're going to open the access. I mean the session. Yeah, Vipul, that's correct. I think that is not being done. Are you able to see the file, Murthy? Are you able to see that file? You should be able to see the file. Are you able to see this file? Yes, right? Yeah. So now what you do is once the session is started, you're going to, okay, let me close this. Not required. This is also not required, but let me load it. You see the small arrow button? Click on that arrow and upload that file. Right? You need to select that, upload it, click open. You should see that file here. You see that on the right left side of the screen? Now you double click it, it will open. It will not be there directly. You have to open, load it and open it. It is a dynamic session every time you get new session. And if you're not using it for some time, then the session will also get closed off. You have to repeat the entire process again. Okay, all right, guys. So we will connect tomorrow and discuss about modules. There's nothing but packages. All right, thank you. Good night.